It'd be very awkward to have a retirement speech sitting down.
What?
You wouldn't have a retirement speech sitting down. You would.
I'm not kidding.
How old you are.
I mean, I am.
Just whenever I'm ready to get up. Thank you for your kind words, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of Congress, fellow Supreme Court justices, cabinet members, friends, and family, I'm honored to be in the company of such distinguished guests. The President has graciously granted my request to address you all this evening in order that I may announce my retirement as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I recognize that to many of you this news will come as a surprise. To others, this news will be welcomed with excitement and relief. A few nights ago, I called a good friend of mine to tell him that I was stepping down. His response? "But you are so young." Well, despite my boyish good looks, at 65 years of age, I do not feel the same youth and energy for the task of judging that I felt when I first came to the bench 25 years ago, nor the same vitality that I felt 15 years ago when I was asked to take on the role as Chief Justice. It seems like only yesterday I was returning to my native Washington, a bright-eyed, ambitious 40-year-old and the leading candidate to fill the vacancy created when Clarence Thomas announced his retirement after 44 years of service. Not only was Justice Thomas the longest-serving Supreme Court justice in the history of this great nation, but after a number of years of being the subject of ridicule, he emerged as the intellectual force on the court, a position he held for over 2 decades, respected, if not loved, by all, and a pioneer of modern conservative jurisprudence. My first thought when asked to assume the seat of such a giant was fear. Cold, hard fear. Fear that I could never live up to such a legend. And I was right. I stand before you and reiterate that same point. I am not Clarence Thomas. The size and scope of my influence pales in comparison to his. But after serving on the bench for some time, I came to appreciate what Justice Thomas himself told me at my swearing in, that any concern over my own legacy would be a disservice, both to myself and to the American people. My place in the history books has become irrelevant to me. After all, the essential characteristic of the judicial branch, as enshrined in Article 3 of our Constitution, the very beauty behind its creation, is that ego and public opinion are to be left at the courthouse gates. A justice asks not what he himself thinks the outcome of the case ought to be, but rather what the law says it must be. I often sympathize with the sentiment expressed by Chief Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, who stated, "I loathed most of the things in favor of which I decided." I know that I have been but a humble interpreter of various documents that I took no part in crafting and no part in adopting. I am frequently asked how our Constitution, a document written nearly 300 years ago, can possibly have any relevance in today's vastly different circumstances. That has not been for me to decide. I am asked to interpret the law, not alter it. As a society, we often exhort members of Congress to vote their conscience. Fortunately, a judge is not cursed to perform such a task. While I wholeheartedly agree with those who hold that our Constitution is a living document, its life comes not through my branch of government, but through the many qualified members of Congress who draft our laws, the tireless executive branch officials who enforce those laws, and of course, first and foremost, the American people themselves. I readily acknowledge that in my role as citizen, distinct from my judicial office, I too possess the power. And I am mindful that each time I cast a ballot, I contribute to the shaping of this great nation. I apologize for boring you all with my discussion of judicial restraint, which no doubt seems irrelevant to my announced retirement. In fact, though, my retirement stems from the very essence of my judicial philosophy. I am retiring at the age of 65 after 25 years of service for 2 reasons. First, because I believe my usefulness as a justice has come to an end and that the American people would be better served by some fresh minds on the court. Second, and more importantly, because I believe my talents may now be better used in the political arena. I see the press rushing for the exits. Relax. I am not announcing my candidacy for office. But those who knew me in my youth know that I have strong political views, which I have worked hard to suppress over the last 25 years. I now wish to speak out, to act as a force for the change it would be inappropriate for a justice to try and enact. I think that it is vital that this court be perceived as impartial. I will not undermine that goal to satisfy my own political aspirations. Over the past 5 years, I have found myself increasingly longing to participate more actively in the political life of our country, but I have repeatedly pushed off my retirement until this day. On this day, I am guided by Pope John Paul II's words, "The future starts today, not tomorrow." I would be remiss if I left this podium without thanking each of you for the help you have provided me over the years. Please know that there will be many more opportunities, both public and private, to offer more complete and personal thank yous, but the President has asked me to keep my remarks short. Know that I leave this position with the utmost respect for the institution and my colleagues and complete optimism for its future vitality. Goodbye, and may God bless you all.